warm welcome this evening and welcome to this edition of Behind the Headlines this Wednesday, the 28th of April 2021. My guests are already in the studio. It's a packed room today, but nonetheless the topic to be discussed is of very significant mileage for this country, for the region, and so we are going to be looking at the prospects for the East African Federation or Confederation, whatever you want to call it. We will be having these experts to break down the terms so that we can understand them better. But to discuss all that, we have in the studio here, starting with the man in charge of the East African Community Affairs Ministry, General Kahinda Otafire is here with us. General, you're most welcome to the show.
Good evening, viewers.
And good to see you again.
Thank you.
Next to General Otafire is Jen Nalunga. Jen Nalunga is the Executive Director of SEATINI. SEATINI stands for the Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. Jen, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
And I think it is your maiden show here.
It is.
So
I think I'm happy to be here.
Good to see you. Next on Jen's right is my professor, my teacher at about 18 years ago at Makerere University, The Hill. Professor, he used to emphasize that his name must be pronounced well. Professor Rutanga Murindwa. He is Professor of Political Science at Makerere University. Since then, I fear to mispronounce his name. Professor, you're most welcome to the show.
Good evening, viewers. Pleased to be here, but I'm also here as a constitutional expert for this confederation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's good to have you. Next to Professor is Council Sarah Birete. Sarah Birete works with the Center for Constitutional Governance, and she is the Executive Director. Sarah, it's good to have you back.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
And finally, on my immediate left, we have Dr. Musime Andrew. He is the Director in charge of East African Affairs at the East African Affairs Ministry, in charge of East African Affairs. Doctor, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Charles, and all the viewers. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And online is Mr. Gobi already set? Gobi will be joining us. He's not yet in. They are trying to connect to his home, to his sitting room. He will be joining us shortly, and he is a panelist on this show. He teaches. I can hear him trying to get in the room, but I will be introducing you when we come back and when I need you to make a comment. But Gobi, for purposes of introduction, he teaches political economy at Makerere University Business School. Let me start with Professor himself. Professor is a member of the governance committee that has just begun a consultative process, national, and this process started on the 23rd last week, and will end by the 4th of May to gather views from Ugandans. And I guess this is being done across the region. And, but we need to start right from setting that ground, you know, what is going on. Professor, start us from why has the target been changed, in quotes, from targeting federation to confederation? Because some people have been asking, why has it been changed? What is the difference in those terms? Federation or confederation, what does it mean, and how does the one that you're going for right now help the ordinary Ugandan business person to start with, or even Ugandan national?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and my former student. I hope you have finished your master's.
I'm in the process.
Yeah.
You have never forgotten to disturb me about that.
No.
But it's a good disturbance.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be here with fellow panelists, eminent panelists, and it's important to make our people understand what is happening. Before I come to what we are doing, let me start by putting it on record that the first country to be consulted was Burundi. We went in January last year, mid-January, and we were there for about 8-9 days. Governor when the late president was still in office, Nkurunziza. So that was the first country, Burundi. Then COVID came, and it halted our consultation process. Now Uganda is the second, and we are remaining with the other 4 countries, the other member countries. Those include Rwanda. We have Rwanda. We have Kenya. We have South Sudan, and we have United Republic of Tanzania. Those are the 4 which are remaining. We hope that the process will go on quickly so that we expedite the work and then proceed to write what we are supposed to do, and then hand over, and the political powers do take over the process of actual confederation. Let me also put it this way, that although we see economic integration, market and currency being put there, the first decision was political. The one which decided, the body which decided to form whatever, whether confederation or what, was a political decision. But it was never fertilized. They opted for the economic ventures first, which was, but the first move was political. When they made that pronouncement, they pronounced themselves on it. The 6 countries was a political decision. That's the first one. And as we know, politics is the key to other domains. Now, what is the difference between federation, confederation, and so on and so forth? If you remember, and history sometimes helps us, in 1963, the 3 leaders of East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania at that time, decided or started with an idea of forming an East African state federation. But gradually it died out. So the idea came in 1963. That's when it came into existence. And it has been going on since then up to now. There have been hitches. 1967, East African Community was formed. 1977, it died, or it was dissolved for particular reasons, which were economic. And some people tend to think that it was Idi Amin's disagreement with Nyerere, but it was the issues were mainly economic. I don't want to go into them now because you have asked me another question. So that's how it started. So recently, as you know, then the leaders of East Africa, the new ones, decided to revive it. And they thought it was very important because we're in a situation, which international situation, where when you are small, you are eaten, whether you like it or not. You are attacked, you are eaten economically, politically, and these days they even use a hybrid war. Some countries or some country uses a hybrid war. Information denial, that's one of them. Information denial, they don't need to attack you directly. Another thing is sanctions, economic sanctions. And the third one is finance. They squeeze you financially, and they squeeze your currencies. So those are the new ones called, which are known as hybrid war. Now, you can't survive if you are small these days. Whether you have oil or whether you have resources, you must either integrate or be ready to be finished. Even if you talk big, you won't be big. There are giants which are ready to feast on you.
Okay. A follow-up before I bring in General. Having said that the start was politically oriented, must that political orientation be the one to be pursued, or as we see in reality, that the economic, the economic pursuit is actually in the lead as far as prospects of even being a benefit for our people is concerned?
If you look at human history, it is politics which finally shapes the nature of society, the transformation of society, the forms of development, and so on and so forth. Without political lead, then, or political key, things remain amorphous. It's like in a market where there is no taxation, where there is no organization, and so forth. So economics can never lead a society. There must be a political arm to give direction. Even in a family, there must be a head of the household. Even when the adults die, you hear child-headed family or household. There must be someone take control of all the affairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Let me, General, Professor has laid the ground for the discussion, and you took over this ministry from during the COVID period, and of course, Professor refers to, hitches. How far is your ministry prepared to deliver this big animal called the confederation or federation or whatever ultimate goal that we need to achieve with it?
We are the ministry, we are the federalist. Unity, federation or confederation is a people's choice. Me, as a Pan-Africanist, I would go for unity, not federation. Why would I go for unity? Because we are one people, and my forebearers do not participate in the determining of these borders. For instance, if the southern border of Sudan had been put in Entebbe, would be Sudanese. If the eastern border of Uganda had been put in Mombasa, would be the Ugandans. In like manner, if the Tanzanian border had been put in Gondokoro, would be Tanzanians. So these so-called states are not a creation of our history or natural state evolvement. These were artificial creations made by Europeans whose interests were not to civilize Africans but to exploit us. So I would opt for unity, not federation. But you see, as such, you cannot run faster than the car you are driving. The car you are driving determines the speed at which you travel.
I like that.
So if the people of East Africa, for some reason or other, have not discovered their real interests, I am happy with the speed at which they are traveling from separate sovereign states. They now want to a confederation. That's better than nothing. The biggest problem we have is everybody's flagging their flag, independence and sovereignty. And like I've often said, these Balkanized African minuscule states can't achieve much. We are flagging with sovereignty, your excellencies, honorable ministers. But sovereignty in poverty is poverty of sovereignty. Sovereignty in poverty is poverty of sovereignty. Poor people can't say much, can't do. If you are, when you are poor, you are nobody. And if you look around, the emerging states and the dominant states are those which with territorial largesse. Look at the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. Look at the United States. Look at China. Look at India. And much as we have the United Nations and rule of law and what, might is still right. Might is right. When the states, the United States says jump, we want to ask how high. How high? You know? But the United States cannot tell that to China or Russia. You know. And ironically, the other big powers, Britain, France, and you remember they got their status as a result of empires. France had a huge African empire.
Yeah.
Britain had an empire on which the sun never set. But since the demise of the empires, their influence has also shrunk. Britain can no longer tell the United States how to jump high or what. You know, Portugal, Spain, the influence has all shrunk. So, if I had my way, I would ask the African people to unite. Okay. Forget about East Africa. I would ask the continent to unite. Look at America, for instance. The 52 states of the United States united, and they have created a mighty country. The Latin America, which was colonized at the same time with North America, remained separate. The states remained separate. Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, Nicaragua, I don't know which Peru, Costa Rica, you know, this other Bolivia, etc. They failed to unite. And you can see they are still third world countries. Yet the very people who created the United States and inhabited it are the same people who created those Balkan countries in Latin America.
Yep.
So if the African people don't unite and galvanize our potential, then we shall remain the underdogs of this world.
Okay.
Charles.
Yes.
It pains when you see our people drowning in the Mediterranean, running away from resource-rich Africa, heading to resource-exhausted Europe to be slaves.
Okay.
So the politics determine the the economics. But I'm very happy that at least we are going for confederation. Like the late Mao Zedong said, the journey of 1,000 kilometers starts with the first step.
Good. Jane, you come from a business angle of this region outlook, and you have had the senior citizens in charge are looking at more of the unity and the politics to lead the way. Is that, do you share in that thought? Do you think that your priority is business oriented, and that perhaps that priority is the winning priority? What do you think benefits the people or the peoples of this region better?
Okay, thank you so much, Charles. There is the reality, there is what we want, the ideal. And I agree, the ideal is a political federation, you know. And I agree entirely with a good professor here, and also with a general, that there are so many advantages when we come together politically as a federation. But I think we need to look at the reality. I don't want to be a pessimist. We need to look at the reality. And the debate we have here, when you look at history, is a debate which has been there in the 1960s, you know, when the whole issue of Africa uniting became one issue. And you remember there was the Casablanca group and the Monrovia group. The Casablanca group, headed by Nkrumah, they were saying you have to unite. In 1960, you know, politically, Africa has to unite. You know? But there was also another dissenting group, the Monrovia group. The Nyereres were there. They were saying, no, we need to go gradual. Eventually, the Monrovia group took that day, and that's when we got the OAU. We opted for the gradual integration, the OAU, the having an African economic grouping, and the CFTA is part of that journey. But I remember one time, Mwalimu Nyerere was saying that Africa missed an opportunity. That in 1960, if countries had agreed to unite, we would have done it. Because people hadn't yet tested power and sovereignty. This is the debate we have today. The reality, you know. In fact, when you look at the previous consultation, the biggest challenge is ceding sovereignty. Because we're all presidents. We have a president, we have a national anthem, we have a flag, you know. All of us are entrenched, and that's the reality on the ground. And I think we need to see what's feasible and what's not feasible. Whether we are going into a confederation, which is also a bit confusing, a confederation is just cooperation to agree on the areas of cooperation. And this is what we have been doing. We have been cooperating. Federation, that's where you got the USA way. You have a federal state. You have a capital, you have a president, then the federals, you know. So whether we go for confederation, a deeper unity, or confederation, the pillar of the federation, one of the pillars, was the effective implementation of the previous stages of integration. We have a common market customs union. We have a common market protocol. We have a monetary union. When you look at all those 3 areas of integration, we are not doing very well. For me, I think if we go back, look at our common market protocol, because the areas are clear. free movement of goods, services, labor, people, capital, the right to residence, the right to establishment, you know. If we can be able to put that right and cooperate properly, I think would have gone a long way. And maybe confederation would come easy. You just add on other areas for cooperation. But today, you look at the region is in turmoil. The regional integration project is in turmoil. And maybe we'll be able to look at that, what is causing it, and how can we address that. But I, for one, like I said, I don't want to be a pessimist, but at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right, make the customs union, the common market protocol right, and maybe go into the monetary union, and then we see what next we can be able to add on.
Thanks a lot, Jane. Sarah, you did some, in your previous assignments, you engaged a lot with things regional. Do you think that, which view do you take? Do you take the view that the politics should sensitize and sanitize people's attitudes and unite us, and then, like they say, and then the rest will be added unto us? Or you think that we should unite around certain beneficial interests, and then inevitably somewhere, somehow, we shall find ourselves uniting?
Well, Charles, like Kwame Nkrumah said, seek ye first the political kingdom, and the rest shall be added unto you. Even the decision to integrate is a political decision taken by our heads of state in the original 3 countries in 1999, when they decided to revive the community. Even previous efforts, like the professor and other people have explained, there were political processes. So I think the politics is important, and getting it right, especially the working relations of the leaders and the rest. But before I get to that, the revival of the community, the East African community, set 4 clear stages of integration. And the reason these stages were clarified is to avoid the past mistakes that led to the collapse of the previous community. Like Jen highlighted the stages, it's first the customs union, the common market, the monetary union, and then the federation. The first 2 stages, there is work being done, tangible work, because the customs union is working. I think we are now talking of 1 stop border posts. I think we have a total of 6 operational 1 stop border posts in the region. We have dealt with the challenges of non-tariff barriers and harmonization at that point. Issues like certificates of origin, and a lot of issues. There's a lot of mileage that has been achieved on the side of the economic integration, but also the leadership of that economic integration is the politics. Like our honorable here, the people leading that economic integration that is moving as compared to the stalemate and challenges at the political level and the way we relate with each other. But I wish to add my voice to support the process of integration, and the benefits that would come with the political federation are really enormous. We are talking of, I think, 4 member states are unlocked, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. These would benefit from direct access to the sea if we became the East African superstate or East African Federation. You are talking of political stability that would enable access to key maritime trade routes on the East African coast. That comes with huge benefits. You are talking of an economic union that would facilitate internal trade and commerce between coastal areas and the hinterland, the rich hinterland and deep, densely populated Great Lakes region, and many other benefits. So it is the right way to go, except we have been slow, considering that this debate started in 1960s. Then we saw the 1967 formation of the East African Community, then they collapsed after 10 years. At least now we have taken a longer step. But I would wish to understand, and since we have our catalysts here, the minister and the doctor in charge of the Federation, there is clear turbulence when it comes to the monetary union. We do not see efforts as common citizens, efforts at harmonizing the fiscal policy, efforts at setting up the central bank for the East African states. There is stalemate at that step 3, and we are quickly jumping to step 4. What are the challenges? What are the motives? And then as we talk of a confederation or a federation, we have 2 borders of the 6 member states closed. We have the Uganda-Rwanda border closed. We have the Rwanda-Burundi border closed. Yet the first principle is free movement of people, goods and services. So where is this free movement on these borders that are closed? And what are the efforts of working on those relations and mistrust and suspicion and even appetite for each of these member states to destabilize one another? So how do you federate in that context? And why are we jumping step 3 of the political process that was clearly laid down in the treaty? To me, I think as an ordinary citizen, I'm really perturbed by those two issues, among other challenges that are addressed. We have trade disputes. Every day you see Kenya saying, don't bring your maize, don't bring your milk. Between Kenya and Tanzania, you see your chicken can't cross the border. Then you go to Uganda, Rwanda, don't cross. Nothing crosses, including rats. The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating in this confusion?
Okay. The best moment, really, to bring in Dr. Musime. Good enough you are the technical man and who is reading inside and inside out, I should say. Respond to some of those issues. I don't even need to add questions for now, because Sarah has placed before you many huge questions. I need you to start from those. What are really, first, why are you jumping the 3rd stage, as was set out by the leaders? And was there a rethinking that the 3rd stage can be achieved later? Or what are the challenges? What are the hiccups in the process? And how do you solve, some of the sticking issues that Sarah has raised? If you can't, you can pass them to the political man is here with us, your minister. He can respond to those sticky ones of closing borders if you feel you cannot, as a technical person, respond to them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles. I want to indicate that theoretically, even in practical terms, there might not be set timelines that clearly demarcate the transition from one stage to another. That from the theoretical perspective, some of these stages are intertwined because one of the progress in one pillar leads into the progress into the other. Secondly, I also want to mention the fact that the decision to confederate, as I come to the specific issues, was a decision that was reached after a series of interactions, majorly with the EAC citizens. Right away from 2004, the WACO Commission when the summit took a decision to fast track the federation, set up a committee to go with 2 questions to the East African citizens. 1, do we federate? Number 2, do we fast track the federation? The first question, all the partner states at that time answered 90+. The second question, all except URT answered 90+, and URT had lower scores. And that led to the effort for the summit to interact with the citizens again to establish what were the fears and concerns that were as part of those outputs that came from the consultations. Again, a committee was put in place to handle the fears and concerns, and then a report was tabled to summit, which eventually summit, through the advice of the council, came to the conclusion that let's go for a confederation. However, the most important aspect is to note that the confederation as a transitional model. So we are not going for a confederation as an ultimate goal, but we are going through a confederation as an ultimate, as a transition, as a framework to transit into a federation. So that's why experts were put in place to come up with a framework and eventually a constitution. And within this framework or constitution, then they will be able to establish, if it's a transition, how long are we going to stay in this transition? If we are transiting, what are the cooperation issues we are going to take into? So I can comfortably say that the region is on course for a federation, but it is cautiously moving to ensure that this journey is cautiously treaded. Now lastly, to the question of whether we are jumping the stages, the monetary union is on course. When the monetary union protocol was signed, there were some milestones that were put in place or things that had to be achieved.
Yeah.
Now, the panelists here hinted on the central bank and the failure for the EAC to come to the central bank, but I can mention that the monetary union protocol, among others, put in place the need to establish institutions that must be in place for the monetary union to become effective. Now, amongst these were what we call IAMI, which is the East African Monetary Institute, which will transit into the central bank. The second one is the East African Statistics Bureau and also the East African Compliance Commission. Now, the first 2, the bills establishing these institutions have already been assented to by summit. The bills have gone through IARA. Then the first one, which is the IAMI, has been assented to by summit, and the next one, the Statistics Bureau, was on the summit agenda, but one of the partner states requested for final consultations. Now, ideally, what is going to happen, once the bill establishing the Monetary Institute now has been signed, the Secretary General of the community is going to write to the partner states within 30 days of his letter to put to him their bids to host these institutes. Once the institute has been hosted in any of the 6 partner states, then the whole process of setting up, the process of establishing the East African Central Bank is going to commence. And the target was that by 2024, we should have a single currency. So as I conclude, I can indicate that, to me, the progress, the willingness, the ability, the technical input, we can say we are on course. And we are so optimistic that integration is a journey that might be slow, but a journey that the East African partner states are handling in a very positive direction.
Okay. Professor wanted to bring on board some proposal. Yes, Professor. Then I can bring back General to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, colleagues. I think the discussion is at least giving better light. I would like to start by clearing some doubt that in 1960 something happened which threatened all the leaders of Africa, and that was the coup in Congo, which was instrumentalized by CIA, that one which overthrew Lumumba's government. and the subsequent killing or assassination, and his body being dissolved into acid. And when it happened like that, everybody, all those even who are talking about this and this, all the leaders started withdrawing, and they went for regional groupings instead of this United States of Africa. So that was the first one, and that's how Pan-Africanism was undermined, and it was deliberate. The assassination, the overthrow and assassination of Patrice Lumumba. That was the main hit, the main draw. The main problem that hit Africa. That was a major one. And those who did it knew what they were doing. And since then, Africa has been in a quandary. Kwame Nkrumah and a few others, NASA and others, remained there, and Sekou and others remained there, but isolated. Everyone got scared. And so the Nyerere group had the day. Their position became strong, but when he came, he united with Zanzibar. That was a strong achievement, and then he fostered the use of Kiswahili, which is a very important language in the whole of Tanzania, and has helped to galvanize and maintain one country. His efforts, and he tried then the East African Confederation. So that was the first hitch that we must understand. Two.
But Professor, 60 years back, that's older than Uganda as under self-rule. Would you still now relate the challenges we have now and connect them to then, realistically speaking? Would you?
You see, the foundation is the most important. When China effected a revolution in 1949, they maintained it, and they first closed the borders until 1978. That's when they opened up for the outside world, and they effected now in a new phase of economic reforms, and that's why today China is leading the world. So the foundation, without a strong foundation, in Africa we all found ourselves in neo-colonies, being dictated to by colonial masters and America. We started teaching knowledge from outside. And up to now, the whole of Africa produces 0.1% of knowledge in the world. That's our contribution. And yet our population is 1.5 billion people. So what knowledge do we produce? Teaching our children. 0.1% is our contribution in knowledge production in the world. So we teach outside knowledge, and the children we produce, or intellectuals, or whatever they study, is outside. I hope now you understand the dilemma in which Africa lives. We don't have any strong economic base, no industrialization, no research all over the country. This is the only continent which hasn't gone outside with a satellite. Others have left the moon, they have gone to Mars. And no country in its own, in its identity or sovereignty will move anywhere, even to the top mountain, Mount Everest. You forget about that, Mount Kilimanjaro, in our current situation. That's why we must think great, for understand our past in which we have been and how to overcome it. Look at Uganda's history from Obote to Amin. What do you expect? Amin could not do better than Obote, as you know. Then see what happened up to 1986. Then correcting all those distortions up to today. I hope now you understand the situation. If you see what we have passed through, then think of other countries. Look at South Africa and all the doldrums. And I wanted also to say that without a state in East Africa to hold all these other ventures together, you can't have a central bank. You can't have a common currency with a common economy without a state. Well, how can you manage? How can you manage? Is it a cooperative? Even a cooperative runs in a country with the head of state, with the king, with the chief, with the president. Somehow there must be a body to hold everybody accountable. These problems, all these challenges we are seeing, whether borders, closure, whether stopping vegetables moving to another country, whether rats from another country, can be, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable. Everybody must be brought to check. That's why we must have a sovereign somewhere not with the usual powers, but someone told everybody in check. Everybody must be accountable and taxable, among other things.
Okay.
So I wanted to say that without the state, all this that we are talking about, trade and what, we are talking about profits. Profits must be taxed. Profits must be controlled. And as we stand today, without a state, countries should, have the power to close certain things they don't want, even if you make an agreement. As Thomas Hobbes said, constitutions without a sword are but mere papers. I hope you understand that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Professor. General, there were questions that were sticking questions that were raised, and Sarah referred to them as the turmoil, the turbulence in the region, along the common borders, amidst regional policies to ease movement of trade and all these products and all that, even professionals. But you find the border between Rwanda and Burundi closed. Closed to who? Closed to the locals. The border between Uganda and Rwanda closed. Closed to who? Closed to brothers and sisters who are supposed to trade and move amongst themselves. Do you see this as a big hindrance to your targeted goal? And how are you planning to work on this? You have had so many, when I say you as government, and as government I mean even at the top level led by His Excellency, the President of Uganda, at that level you have engaged, but up to now the borders are closed over a year now, and our people are losing business, they're losing trade, they're losing money. How then would you solve that?
You see, we are leaders, and you can only become a leader when there are problems.
I like that.
Otherwise, if there are no problems, nobody needs you. Because if I can sort out my affairs myself,
you don't need any person.
I don't need anybody to give me direction. So the fact that there are problems puts us in these positions. And that's what African people don't understand quite well. That we are leaders to solve problems. And the problems Sarah was referring to can be best solved by the East African Union. When you have one state with one authority, then Rwanda as a province will not close its border with another province. You know? Uganda as a province of East Africa will not close its border with Rwanda as another province, because the central authority will say no. There will be this central authority hovering all these constituent parts and giving them direction. That's what the people who are in charge of these events don't want to understand or have failed to fathom. That's why I was telling you that you can't run faster than your car. Some of us see these and the need for integration, complete integration, so that we have a central authority that will dictate, central authority managed by our people that will prevail over the interests of the individuals who are in charge of the current provinces of East Africa. You know, the people, we should have a people-led federation. The people must push the governments. Otherwise, we shall remain in this quandary that this border is closed. It is now, it's I don't want to be misunderstood, but we seem to be chasing our tail. You know, what do we want? I would advise the people of East Africa to beat up their leaders and tell them this is what we want. Not what you want, you the leaders, no. This is what we want. How do you have a single currency when you can't plan your economy properly together as one country? This one is doing this, the other one is doing this. This one has this fiscal policy, the other one has this. How are you going to have a single currency? How are you going to defend yourself? Yeah? ISIS has now come on the continent. It's now a reality. It's Tanzania and Mozambique are battling with this ISIS. It's on our western border in the Congo. Congo left on its own, it will not manage ISIS. Now, when Uganda tries to help Congo, they say you have invaded the Congo. But if we don't go into the Congo to beat the ISIS, to help our Congolese brothers, ISIS will spill over into Uganda and we shall be in trouble. Not only Uganda, it will go into get into Rwanda. Tanzania is now engaged. And the resources we are using to fight these useless people are resources we should be putting to development. So that's why there is a need for us to urgently come together and tackle these problems in unison, not as individuals. You cannot have a body where the feet are doing different things from the from the arms, and the arms are punishing the head, and the head is not consulting the stomach. That's cacophony. It's not music, that's cacophony. So there is a need there is a need for rapid integration. That's why I told you that sovereignty in poverty is poverty of sovereignty. You know, who created ISIS? Where does ISIS come from? Who created it? ISIS did not come from heaven, my friend. It's not God created, it was created by human beings. Certain human beings created the philosophy of fundamentalism. Somebody created that philosophy of fundamentalism. They rode on that philosophy, and as the old saying goes, when you ride on a tiger, you often end inside it. The tiger finished their enemies, now the tiger wants to eat the creator. Unfortunately, the tiger does not know who its enemies are and who is now the tiger also wants to take us. So it's important that we, the African leaders, put together our act and act first. Either we hang together and survive, or we hang separately.
Okay. Good. At this point, let me bring in Mr. Gobi. Mr. Gobi is joining us from the comfort of his house. I saw him on set. Gobi, good evening.
Good evening, Charles.
You look better minus the mask, and it's only when you are at home that you can enjoy that that privilege. Good to see you. I guess you have been following the discussion. Very interesting. But I want you to weigh in on what your thoughts are about the prospects of the community. Put aside the nomenclature, whether unitary or confederation or or federation, from a perspective of money, of business, of trade. Do you think that where we are at right now, the East African community has greater prospects than when it was first, when the treaty was signed in 1999?
Thank you, Charles. I know why you are biasing on the money side, because as an economist, you think I don't understand these things of the politics of integration and regionalism. But at moves where my good friend Dr. Musime was a colleague of mine, I teach also some bit of this economics of integration and the political economy of it to our MBAs. And this issue of confederation or getting East Africa to cooperate and eventually create a political federation that can solve most of our common regional challenges and get the region of East Africa and Africa later to working together is a very serious matter. And it's good you brought most of the people I know who are solid in this area. My good friend, Professor Rutanga, it's been a long time, but we used to talk about some. Number one, Charles, we need not to forget the reasons the old community collapsed in 1977. There were basically 4 reasons. The first one was the political and ideological differences of our countries. Then there were 3 of them in the ESC. Tanzania and Uganda had become socialist. You know, for Tanzania, after the Arusha Declaration of 1967, and also in Uganda here, you remember the Common Man's Charter of 65. Kenya had remained largely capitalist and open to foreign direct investment and all other tenets of capitalism. So with that ideological and the political differences we had, we couldn't work together. Secondly, the inequitable distribution of the costs and benefits of the old ESC, with of course Kenya dominating the others, also became a problem. Then 3, the issue of lack of adequate kind of mechanisms and policies to address these arguments that these countries had. And lastly, the personality differences, of course, of the heads of state, especially when our own leader, Idi Amin Dada, came on board. Now, we need to note that one of the key lessons we have learned from history of regionalism and confederation and so on has been a gradual treaty-making process and enforcement of all the mechanisms of, you know, of cooperation. It is something you can't rush. It involves consultation with a wide array of stakeholders. Or if you want to do it differently, then you have to just coerce them, butter them into taken by the US. But if we are not that option is not available, then we need to understand the delays. They are more prudent, and at the end of the day, painful but prudent. At the end of the day, they bring the results. Now, quickly going to your question, I think Dr. Musime gave a very good in 2004 when the political federation those who consulted, they found a number of those fears. And those fears are still there. They haven't gone, Charles. And I would like the panel really to candidly discuss some of these things, because they are still the ones which are forcing the leaders of these small units called countries to take caution. Because I know they have emphasized the loss of sovereignty and nationalism, but also they are, bread and butter, loss of jobs, people fearing that those who are better trained, who have better trained workers, will take over the small jobs of others. The aspect to do with the loss of, there was also the fear, a very common fear that the new federation might collapse like the earlier one. In other words, that those causes I've mentioned, perhaps they haven't gone away, the four of them. Although some of them have reduced in intensity and also in form, they have not completely gone away. Some were having also fears in as far as the electoral processes are and the livelihoods of people and so on and so forth. But I would want us to put more emphasis on the challenges which people identified. The challenge of lacking a strong and credible authority to implement the decisions and enforce conformity. The Arusha in its present kind of form and shape cannot do much in terms of working as a mechanism to enforce compliance to these other things we are talking about, the economic integration concerning the common market and even before the customs union. We have also very weak dispute settlement mechanism. And as you know, most of our member states, they are belonging to different groupings, and those overlaps in membership also had caused problems. Plus also the powerful interests we have in the region, which tend to influence their governments to take certain decisions which tend to, as we are moving 2 steps, they take us back one step. But to me, we are still on the trajectory despite those challenges. Now, lastly, talking briefly about the benefits we have so far enjoyed. This ESC, we tend to undermine that some people say we are not seeing much being done and so on. It has already registered tremendous achievement. And I think it was Bertrand Russell, one of those British philosophers, who said that the only thing I think that would redeem mankind is cooperation. I see this practically happening here in East Africa. Smoothing of trade, for example, among the member nations. This is happening. Trade used to be very uneven in intensity and in direction. Kenya used to dominate the exports. Almost 80% of the exports in the region were originating from Kenya, with Uganda dominating imports. We were importers. Now, when we check the numbers, the share of Uganda and Tanzania in the ESC exports has steadily risen. And at one time, actually, a couple of years ago, Uganda had registered a positive trade balance with Kenya for the first time in almost in the history of this nation. So the integration is working. When you look at also East Africa getting integrated in the world market, it is happening. International trade has increased by over 38% from East Africa to the international within this period. We have seen a trade getting more liberalized and in a way which is more mutually beneficial to the member states. Our countries are now more open to trade than an average sub-Saharan African nation. So we have seen the business environment also improving within this region. When you look at the import duties which countries used to charge these small traders here, now removed and reduced largely, and also extending this common external tariff, the tariff regime, which actually made some of these countries more now competitive within the region. This has helped a lot. And who are benefiting? The average, people within East Africa, the ones benefiting. I cannot exhaust the benefits.
Okay.
The people, the consumers, we have seen goods in terms of their supply increasing and at lower prices now. Goods are circulating within the region. We have also seen traders and transporters benefiting. The traders, they are saving time. We used to suffer a lot, for example, for us here, most expensive route in the world in terms of transporting goods, the Mombasa-Kampala route is very, very expensive. But now, because of removing these artificial borders in terms of movement of goods, we have seen the time spent reducing from 18 days to about only 5 days now, mainly because of the poor transport system. Otherwise, they would be much lower, because we used to spend 11 days at Mombasa just clearing goods between us and Kenya. That has gone away.
Okay.
We have seen also producers and service providers benefiting. Parents and students, they are now studying in different schools freely. The youth, they are benefiting. We are seeing a lot of cross-border social networking space. More Ugandans are marrying Kenyans, Kenyans are marrying Ugandans and Tanzanians. And so the community, I would want to look at it as a process and not as an event. I think we are really at a very good track, despite these challenges we are talking about. I know now the decision has to be, or was already taken by the politicians, that we must federate politically if we need to secure these economic kind of benefits and the other improvements we are making. But as far as I'm concerned, we are on a good trajectory. We just need now to get more enforcement mechanism of these things we agree on, especially concerning the common market. We shouldn't rush very much into this common currency, because without first strengthening, especially the common market, we are not likely to succeed in having this common currency working here.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Gobi. Professor, I've seen your hand. I'm going to come back to you, but after the break, allow me call for a break right now. We need to pay the bills as well. And when we come back, we will look at we will take the approach of candor, like Mr. Gobi has advised. We need to look at the challenges more candidly. Can we sort them out? Why confederate? Why federate? Why not? And like Musime said, confederation is a transitional approach. So let's go for that break, and we come back. The discussion continues.
No one should stop you from finishing what's yours. That's why MTN gives you data bundles that don't expire. Load MTN Freedom Bundles using My MTN app and enjoy the freedom to finish your data bundles. MTN.
Today tastes like a new tradition, like an old favorite. Tastes like all hands on deck and all eyes on the prize. Today tastes like a piece of the action. And it never tasted this good.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines, this Wednesday, April the 28th, 2021, and we are discussing the prospects for the East African Federation. There is already underway a national consultative process going on in the country, started on the 23rd of April last week, and to end next week. And like Professor has said, this is the second country where the consultation is taking place, and it is going to cover all the countries or states of the region. And we are looking at the discussion is hosting the Minister in charge of the East African Community Affairs, Honorable Kainda Otafire. We have Professor Murindwa Rutanga, who is Professor of Political Science at Makerere University, and is also a member of the Constitutional Committee. But we also have from outside those bodies, we have the Director of ESC Affairs, Ministry of East African Affairs, Dr. Musime Andrew here. We have Council Sarah Birete, who is the Executive Director of the CCG, and Jen Nalunga, Executive Director of SEATINI. On the line, through Zoom, we have Mr. Gobi, who is our panelist here and is joining us from home. Professor, before we went into the break, you wanted to weigh in on some of the issues, but I also want to invite our viewers. If you want to join in the discussion, it's now. Send in your question or comment. I've already started receiving some. I will be sharing some shortly so that they can be responded to quickly in the discussion. UBC TV on Facebook, UBC TV. Then you can also join us through UBC Television, which is UBC Television Uganda. That's through YouTube. but also the hashtag UBC behind the headlines, hashtag UBC behind the headlines. But you can also send your questions or comments through my cell phone as well, so that we can read them instantly as they come. Professor, you wanted to weigh in. Let me give you a minute or two, and then I bring in Jen and Sarah on to look at, you know, some of these hiccups that we have. They can start thinking about, how do we resolve them? Are they resolvable in any case? And if they are political, how do we resolve the political questions in order to drive the economic benefits, you know? If they are economic, how do we ensure that the economic benefits are not interfered with by the politics and political interests? That is a question we must answer in this discussion. But Professor first.
Thank you very much, Bwana Moderator. Let me begin by clarifying on confederation versus federation. And I will start with the one we are used to. Federation is where different states, different entities agree to surrender their sovereignty, and they form one state on top. They surrender one authority, and then they submit. Yeah. That is the federation. The best examples in Africa, for example, include Nigeria. When you go outside, India is a federation. You have the United States of America, and so on and so forth. Then you have the other one, which is a confederation. Here, the states retain their sovereignty, but they agree to cooperate on certain areas. Examples include the East African Community, the first one, which broke because there was no body, no organized force to hold it accountable. So it broke in 1977, and I will deal with why it broke. The second one is the current one we have. East African, the current EAC is a form of confederation. We have certain interests. We are talking of common border, common market, common customs union, common currency, but there is no country has surrendered its authority. So it's a form of confederation. Another example in Africa is the Senegambia one, which was there. Then you have, for example, European Union. You can see they are entering, they are going. Today, Britain has gone out. It's just like this tentative sleeping in a lodge. You can go out, you can enter. There is free exit, free entry. There are no loose ties. It is just you enter, conjuncture relationship. That is the main difference between confederation and a federation. And we are already, if you look at it properly, we are in a confederation. But we are going into it now to give it a constitution as a temporary measure towards a federation. Now, Brother Ngobi raised certain issues, and I wanted to add something on why the East African community collapsed in 1977. He raised many points which are very important and which need to be understood, to be taken cognizance of, but there is also this unequal distribution of East African facilities. There was, one of the three partner states was receiving giant facilities and benefits, including employment benefits at the expense of the other two. And that one became one of the major problems in the community. Then the second one was absence of a uniting common language. If people speak different languages, it becomes averse. And they had the opportunity to use Kiswahili. Where we have been in Burundi, where we have been in Uganda, right from from Kavale through Mbarara, we have been to Mbale, we have been to Guru, we have been to Arua. People are talking of Kiswahili. Kiswahili. They are showing the importance of Kiswahili, that you don't need to go to school. And they are emphasizing that most languages share words in Kiswahili. And so, to them, it is organic. It's an organically linked or organically developed language, which we should which we should harness. So East Africa, which is the center of Kiswahili, should take advantage of that. They never took advantage, and we seem to be not taking note of it. And finally, there was another problem. There was a plot which people don't talk about. But as a professor, I have to raise it. It is written, to well documented. A plot from one country to stop the ESC in 1977. And they grounded the planes. After grounding all the planes except one, they said they were pulling out of the community. And one plane was rushed to Tanzania. I'm sure you have heard of that. It is well documented. And so it was a deliberate move to destroy. And there was no country, no state, no authority which could hold any country responsible or accountable. And that's how it went.
Okay. Sarah, you need to come in, and we need to start looking at to tackle the challenges. Yes, they have been raised. The question of the turmoils, as you referred to them, what do you think are supposed to be the solutions to this? And can they be political? Must they be? General said that the people must push their leaders on the things that interest them and benefit them most. But is that possible realistically? How do we do it, if it is possible?
You see, in the preamble of the East African Treaty, the most emphasized principle is to have a community that is people-centered and private sector-led.
Yeah.
But over time, you know that like the East African integration process, the discussions have become the business of technocrats. And in most times, people are left in the corner. The best way to diffuse tensions is what Honorable Otafire has said. Go back to the basics of the foundation of the community. Make it people-centered. Once it's people-centered, people-driven, the egos of the leaders will be fused. Will be diffused. The mistrust will be resolved because the focus will be on the people. So I wish our leadership can go back to the founding principle for reestablishing the community and take it back in the hands of the people as compared to leaders. We have seen situations where, and again the community moves by consensus. We have seen situations where they failed to call a summit because of this mistrust. So the key impediments to the advancement of the East African integration agenda are basically two. Mistrust between leaders, mutual mistrust, and policy divergence. If we can have ways of bringing in people, like the General has said, and make the people drive the agenda, then, because the people are integrating ahead of the government, and that is the reality. Even when you say that the Rwanda border is closed, I'm sure there could be some people farming across. These are porous borders. So you have the nature of the porous borders in the community, the nature of interconnectedness of the people, social and economically. It's like during COVID, UBC border. There had to be reinforcement on porous borders to stop movement and to stop the spread of the pandemic, because the artificial borders alone are not enough to stop the interconnectedness of the people. So if we can have the people drive the agenda and then work on solving the policy divergence, I think this would diffuse the mutual mistrust and personal. Because I don't think there is a problem. There is no problem with the East African people. It is a mutual mistrust between some leaders in the community. And then because the principle is moving by consensus, then we get these challenges. But also challenges are part of life, and they are there to be.
Would you propose that clause, if it has become an impediment in a way, that should be put aside? they want on consensus to generate agreements. Do you think that it's now being used politically as an impediment?
Yeah, you know, most of the progressive integration blocks move by majority. You know, some of them 2/3, because at times consensus becomes impossible. And you can
and that majority has actually been done.
Yes.
Because
we saw majority moving during the coalition of the willing.
Yes, exactly.
And even steps taken, you know, like Uganda is now doing oil exploration with Tanzania. But also we have the infrastructure developments that have gone on that basis of you know, of majority to move away from challenges of consensus. Maybe it is a principle that should be reviewed and say, but when you are 6 and then you say simple majority 2/3, once there is agreement of 2/3 or 4 out of 6, then you are able to proceed so that you don't have one country holding the other partners at
deliberately.
ransom. Yeah, and most times it's deliberate. The third approach that we should take to solve some of these challenges is to focus on the bigger common good. The integration process has opportunities for everybody, every citizen of East Africa. If we can re-emphasize the benefits of integration ahead of problems and challenges, because now what comes out in the narrative and through media is the challenges. Ugandan maize has been chased. Ugandan milk can't go to Kenya. You know, Kenyan chicken can't cross to Tanzania. Then people are like, but what are we doing? So if we can have a deliberate focus on the benefits of the community and front that narrative, I think it would also help diffuse the challenges that are political and minor as compared to the bigger benefits.
Jen, I want you to weigh in on this along the same line of thinking on how to remove the hindrances. And I'm speaking especially about hindrances which you see are really not economic and not for the benefit of the people, but based on some narrow interests or even ego of some of our leaders. And then it blocks the bigger people from benefiting from some of this, you know, available, you know, from the aims of the whole community. How would you want them resolved? What are those impediments that you would want maybe reviewed, maybe changed, amended, whatever word you would want to call them?
Okay.
For business to thrive more.
Okay, thank you so much, Charles. There are so many issues, as have been pointed out, which we need to work on if we are to move forward. I agree with Professor Govi, what he was saying, that we have moved a long way. In fact, when you look at the RECs, the regional integration groupings, the East African REC is the one which has a higher intra-regional trade. So we have really moved. There are issues which needs to be worked on. The issue of champions. Any regional integration process must have a champion or champions. And we have seen this in EU. Germany has played a very, very big key role. And in Uganda, I think our president has done a good job of championing the regional integration process. Some people don't believe it, but for me, when I look at what he has been doing in the trade arena, you know, everybody has been calling, for example, for retaliation. Let us retaliate against Kenya. He says, no, let us go slow. And we have seen a number of policies, bills, being returned from Parliament because they haven't conformed to the treaty and to the Common Market Protocol, like the local government, the local content bill. So we need champions, and we need them very, very urgently. Our leaders should also be respectful to what has been agreed on in the treaty. That one of the principles of the treaty is subsidiarity, you know, and it goes to the issue of ceding some of the national sovereignty to the supra-state. It's clear, but this hasn't been followed. We need to work on that. We need to respect the treaty. The structures of the ESC are also a bit weak. The dispute settlement mechanism, Sarah has alluded to this. For example, there is a challenge of the ESC, the Rwanda-Uganda border. And when you look at the treaty, it's the summit which has to resolve that. But here, Rwanda was the chair of the summit, and Rwanda was part of the problem. And that's why you saw, you know, Angola and the others coming in to intervene, and you say, what kind of, you know, ESC do we have that we have to go outside the ESC to get a solution? So there are some of those issues which needs to be addressed. But there's an issue which I want to raise also. The issue which the General has raised about unity, that the end goal, what we are looking is for unity of the region and also the central authority. And I want to say that when you look at the reality on the ground, you know, is the federation possible? And the General has said we are going into a confederation so that we don't scare away, like a sort of a soft landing to make people get used to the federation, you know. But what I'm saying is let us explore other models. The professor here has talked about the EU. EU started with a coal and steel as a product, you know, traded within the EU, and they went on step by step. When you look at the EU model, they have the EU Parliament, but then they also, the leaders are still there, you know. So let us study.
Just like we have IALA.
Yeah, but IALA, you know, when you look at the EU, the powers, because they negotiate, you know, it's a bit different. The EU Parliament has more powers than IALA. But what I'm saying, let us look at different models. We can look at also ECOWAS. When you look at ECOWAS, the General was talking about an army, looking at our security as a region. ECOWAS has ECOMOG, and ECOMOG has intervened, you remember the other time in Ivory Coast, very strongly, you know. So when you look at where we are now, and look at the reality, whether in 5 years' time or is it 2024 to have a federation according to the timelines, the roadmap, is it a reality given the suspicion that we are going to have one leader and then Uganda becomes a province? And can it work or not? Is it a reality, you know? And if it isn't, what do we need to do to make the regional integration project work? And it can work because it has been working. So let us look at those challenges, because already we are in a confederation. Because we have been cooperating on a number of issues. It's a matter of adding on. Those are the issues like the defense, what the General is pointing out, the foreign policy. When we have built a firm foundation of the trade, of, you know, when you look at if we implement the common market protocol, you know, up to 100%, then it comes automatically that we can be able to add on the foreign policy. We can have the army, like I have said, ECOWAS has ECOMOG. So what I'm saying, let us look at the reality on the ground, but also be able to look at different options of how to address the issue of unity, address the issue of a central authority.
Okay, good. Professor, I'm going to come back to you. You wanted to, on maybe if you're giving a clarification right now, a clarification, you need to, are you in the process of gathering this feedback from the citizens or whichever sample groups you're using? Are you also asking questions on things that they would want changed?
Yeah, we have 9 issues which
maybe
Musime
will shortly respond
on governance
on that.
And so on.
Before I read the comments from the viewers and bring in the minister.
Yeah, I just wanted to chip in and say this, that European Union came and studied the East African community, the first one which broke, and they went and replicated it. And that community had...
They just made better the East African community
No, they didn't even make it better. They have 3 ministers. East African community had 3 ministers based in Arusha. You remember that? And that's the same thing they replicated. That's why they never created a political body. They only created a currency, which is the euro, and so on and so forth. So their confederation was not different from it was replicated from the European East African community.
Which then speaks to the will that they created. They copied an idea, but they had the will to make it work.
It's not working. By the way, it's not working well. You can see Britain will tell you that the European Union, when it was going away, was not a state. That's why it didn't happen.
You are the teacher. Is there anything that on this earth which is 100% perfect?
That's right.
Even the East African community will never be perfect.
No, you are perfect. That's why you are chairing us. But I want also to raise something. Another thing that we need to look at is the East African Standing Brigade. We have the East African Standing Brigade, which is even better than ECOMOG, because Nigeria now is grounded. It is asking United States of America to come and bring the other one in Germany to Africa, so that it can help it to fight against the other Boko Haram and others. Today, if you read the papers, so we are doing better in East Africa than them. The only problem is that sometimes we don't see ourselves in the mirror. We see others and then think that they are better than us. And finally, it's good that you raised a very important issue on Museveni. He's the real champion at the moment of this, not confederation, of integration.
But he's the lone voice almost in the region, isn't he? He really... I follow the East African community discussions a lot as a journalist, but also as an East African interested. And what I see, and this is, you may correct me if I'm wrong, even Honorable Otafire, if I'm wrong, correct me. President Museveni is leading in the will, he is leading in the energy, he is leading in the speaking or sensitization, but and more often you see him on every political platform that he has, he is the one emphasizing East Africa, East Africa, East Africa. But you don't see his peers doing as much, and which raises then the question. Sarah talked about the mistrust over sovereignty issues. There was a time, I think, when there was another consultation which showed, or I was talking, I think, to someone, one of the MPs of Yala, who told me they went to Tanzania and they were told that we fear you people want to be the first, you want to be the ones to take over the leadership. We fear you people, meaning that they fear Ugandans. Tanzanians saying that. Kenyans think that we also want to be the ones to take over the leadership with our ideas and all our hiccups as well. So those mistrusts exist, and we must answer them and address them, don't we?
I think even Tanzanians feared that we would, Kenyans would, and then some Ugandans would take over the land. Those are mistrusts which must be overcome with time.
And those perceptions drive politics, and a lot of...
they will be overcome. So those are some of the things that I wanted to put to
good. General, I'm coming to you after Musime. But with the questions from the viewers as well, which the team will respond to. Mr. Musime, there are questions of addressing some of the impediments. A number of them have been raised. As a technical person, how do you gather these views and ensure that they are acted upon, those that need reviewing, in order to then catapult the whole push for the federation or for the whatever stage it is? How are you going to work on this? Especially, what views are you picking out that you think need changing, and what are you throwing in that people must know during this consultative process?
Thank you very much. The process for that is ongoing to consult the stakeholders specifically on their views on the confederation process is addressing around 8 issues. The first issue is basically to find out what are the views of the citizens of the EAC on the areas of cooperation that must be given to the confederal authority. Secondly is about the structure in terms of how, if there is a confederal authority that comes in place, what is going to be the governance structure. Are you following, the normal structure of government where you have the separation of powers and all these issues? The third one is about decision making. How will the confederal authority make decisions? You talked about the issue of the current status of consensus. Is the consensus mode still feasible? Are there any other option? The second one is about the third is about the governance principles. What are the governance principles that must be upheld within this confederal authority? The fifth one is about the relationship. Now that we have seen that in a confederation, we are going to have partner states remain with sovereignty or cede some sovereignty to the center. What is going to be the relationship in terms of how the two levels relate to each other? The other important aspect that is being asked is about funding. How do you fund the confederation? What method?
Big animal in
the big animal. If you create the center, how is it going to be funded? Is the current mode of funding feasible, where partner states are contributing equal in terms of the budget? Are you having options for
and
going
when they have a political disagreement, they delay to contribute?
They delay to pay, or even somebody pays at his own will, but you have decisions and implementation of projects and programs. Then at the end of this process, a constitution will be made. Now, the other question that is being asked is that once we come up with a draft constitution, how will this constitution be adopted? Is it going to give us options as citizens? Should we go for a referendum? Should we go through parliaments of national states? Should we go through the summit? And then lastly, the experts are looking at any other views that the citizens would have in terms of making this particular process. So the whole process is purely to get as many views as possible from the citizens, so that then these views, we can say that the experts are in the second stage. They started by undertaking a desk research to review all the forms of these confederations. The second stage now has been to get the views from the stakeholders. The third stage is that they are going to come up with a draft constitution for the confederation, which is now going to be negotiated through the different channels of the council and the virtual summit, including again the stakeholders to give in their views. And then eventually the outcome will be the one that will take the community to the next level.
Okay, good. Professor, maybe just to add on to his. Yes.
He left out, he gave us, it's a summary of the whole thing, except one. Membership to the confederation. What should be the criterion for allowing in members? Okay. The existing ones.
South Sudan wants to join. Congo
no, it is already there. Those are there.
Yes, I'm just giving as an example.
It is now Congo, DRC, which has applied, and Somalia, and they are studying them. In fact, now DRC has reached a stage of going to vet, see whether it meets the criterion, and then it will be admitted. I hope the Secretariat will do its work quickly so that we can move on to other things.
On this committee, Professor, that you are a member of, Do you have a business person on it, or business people on it?
No, we don't have business people.
Why don't you have business people? Because I think that the best...
Let me sort it out for you. Since time is not our best ally.
Yes.
That this was the heads of state who happened to constitute the summit decided on 2 categories. There had to be a professor and a lawyer who is seasoned.
Yeah.
So that was the criterion. They decided.
I think I need to put this proposal to General. General, why don't you advise the president that on this committee there should have been a business person?
This was
why I am thinking so.
This is in a. You see, now you are trying to drink milk in a bar. you go to a bar and you start asking for milk. In a bar, they drink alcohol. So the writing a constitution is not a business matter.
Yeah.
Business is about profit.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes. About business, about profit, trade, and all that.
A constitution is about governance.
Yes.
Now the business people, the politicians, the students, the journalists are a subject of this constitution. They are subjects. How do you organize them in an orderly manner, which now becomes the constitution? It's a matter of organization.
Okay.
So that's why we said let's have people who understand, who have more knowledge about politics. That's why we have professors of political science, and then lawyers.
Okay.
Who are constitutional experts.
Okay.
Now, we are consulting. The process of consultation brings in business people.
Okay.
Now, by consultation, we are aggregating interests.
Okay.
So these interests, this committee will now say, how do we accommodate these interests in an orderly manner and written, and then we shall later on debate these questions.
Interest. Okay.
Now, what I wanted to say is that I'm not disheartened by what is the processes that are going on. It's a matter of education. People are talking of suspicion and what. Unfortunately, the current regimen and thinking of the African people is preservation of colonialism. Secondly, there are actors in this world who don't want to see the East African community and the East African Union succeed. Because, like the Baganda say, amaziga gente lyesanyu lyembwa, meaning the tears of a cow is the pleasure of the dog. When a cow starts crying, then the dogs gather. Like, for instance, we went to a certain meeting, I won't mention it, and we were talking about preserving taxes on mineral exports. And that's how the EPAs were scattered. Because I was insisting, because then I was Minister for Commerce, I was insisting we must preserve taxation on mineral exports. And the fellows who were negotiating, we were saying, no, you must remove taxes on mineral exports. What does that mean? It means export your minerals without value addition, bring them to Europe, we process them, export your jobs also, we process them, then we return them to you as finished industrial goods. Now, that's a do or die matter. You see, unless these Africans understand the difference between principled disagreement and secondary contradiction, we shan't get very far. We are emphasizing secondary contradictions, the flag, the titles, Excellency, and you know, we are worried about being called Excellency, all our ministers. We are worried about our flag. We are about the national anthem. But all of these excellency, national anthem, flag, and what cannot put food on the table.
No.
At the end of the day, do you eat the national anthem?
No. Okay.
Now, we must look at an edifice that breaks this eternal encirclement of enslavement and neocolonialism. Because you see, colonialism was enslavement on your territory. You were taken away to go and plant cotton and grow sugar in America. When the slaves became very difficult to manage in America, they said, these buggers, let's go and enslave them here, where they are. Now, when we started championing for independence, they said, okay, we can give them flag independence, tell them their excellencies, but we still control the economies.
Yeah.
And that's the current arrangement of an equal exchange. So we shall never get out of this vicious cycle of producing for North America, Europe, and Japan. For as long as we have this unequal relationship of exchange, we are exporting our jobs. We are exporting, for instance, take the oil. Oil. There are things I'm not going to talk about here. But when you export oil, what do you export? You export the fuel, you export plastic,
The plastics.
you export the grease, you export the explosives, you export the tar, you export the
gas.
And then they bring it back them to you, they bring them back to you. You exported the barrel at $56. The barrel, when it comes back, it's about 400. And that vicious cycle is what is keeping our people behind, and we are crying. And in the process, we start attacking our governments. We are all victims of lack of mental liberation.
Okay.
If we, the African people, and our leaders can start thinking outside the box, think outside the box. No, that's what I was telling these members of the committee. The Constitution need not be what other people have done. Look at all these broad experiences and let the experience, the conclusion, fit our own peculiar circumstances in East Africa, with a view to liberating ourselves from this vicious cycle of poverty.
Okay.
That's why I say poverty in sovereignty and poverty is poverty of sovereignty. Because a poor man has no voice. A poor man has no voice. This is a poor man in the village. What can you say? When they call a meeting of people who matter, you are not there. Nobody invites you.
So
nobody invites you to come.
General, you have started on the right note. Start from sensitizing the people using medium like this. Ensure that people get the information, they get the education that you and the ideology that you are sensitizing them about, and then they will fight with you.
Nobody will invite you to come and contribute to poverty.
Very quickly, Professor Gobi, I need you. You had your network had a hitch. Prepare for us a quick question for the guests. But allow me read 3 or 4 questions or comments from the public. Patrick says the only way East Africa can federate is when there is a political will to surrender sovereignty. There is no single sign that this is a direction our leaders wish to take. We can't federate economically when politically we have failed. That's what Patrick is saying. And then there is the rest. There is a very long one here. I don't think I can read a very long message. There is no time now to read very long messages. Let me read the Charles. This is a wonderful discussion. I thank you for selecting this panel and this topic. The professor dressed that the professor dressed in yellow has taken my full credit. This is someone called Job Richard. The discussants are great. He's only praising. I wanted some question. I don't like too many praises. Okay, there is one here, General. Someone says, Charles, thank God. Tonight you have really hosted the cream of the East African Federation issues. Okay. From Kasese, I'm called Honorable Buhaka Lucas, and I have seen Honorable Kahinda. Greetings to him. That's from Kasese. Someone called Julius says, Charles, the best way is to invite all experts like that professor, and then Foreign Affairs Minister as well with East Africa. And then send a team to go and make a study how SADC and ECOWAS operate. Thanks about that, but you didn't tell me your name. There are a lot of the questions that have come here on Twitter, but let me see if there is any short one which we can use from Twitter. The Twitter messages are long. This one is long. Katiba Watch Africa says, interesting debate for our citizens. I hope the process will have more aspects of citizens' inclusion. Sarah had already referred to that, people-centered. I think that's important. And then someone here is saying it's actually only, I don't know what the person refers to, says it's actually only in the Kenya, in the entire Africa. I don't know what thing that Kenya is the only one doing. Maybe you need to add what they are doing so that we can make it as a question which is understandable. And then someone here called Kamugisha says, next time call General Otafire to educate Africans. That's okay. General will definitely come. We will invite him. Okay, someone is complaining the microphone was not very fine, but that has been sorted. I think we need, Professor, I now need to bring you, Professor Gobi, we have run out of time, but we can still ask the question so that then the panelists here can respond to them in 1 minute each, and we close down. So you can start with whoever you want to start with, Gobi.
Thank you, Charles. I'll ask just one common question to the panel, and they help us understand. You know, now with the COVID coming at the heels of the globalization, which also had made it quite more difficult for countries to actualize the benefits of regionalism. We have seen now the resurgence of nationalism, the resurgence of inward looking. Even here in Uganda, we are culprits. We have once again raised the spirits of protectionism, the spirits of thinking Ugandan, more than East African. We are singing Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. In Kenya, they have Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. Tanzania, same story, and others. So how do the panel, how do they look at this, and how do we ensure that we can achieve the objectives of these inward-looking policies without shortchanging the benefits we have so far achieved in integrating East Africa before even we think of the Federation? How do we ensure that we don't shortchange those benefits, but at the same time we achieve the objectives of inward looking and the mercantilism which has come back? Okay, I will maybe now, thanks Gobi, I will request that Sarah is the one who starts with that, but for Musime, I think I needed Musime to just wrap up in 1 minute by telling us what is now going to be the process after the collection of the views. How is it going to be processed, and how long will it take? And yeah, that.
Thank you very much. So after the consultations in Uganda, as we have already heard, then the consultations will go in the remaining 4 partner states. Once this is done, the experts will sit down to review all the comments that came through, and then possibly at that point they are going to propose a framework, but during that time they are also giving progress reports to the Council of Ministers and the Summit, and they are going to come up with a framework, proposing the model, and possibly then draft a constitution for the Confederation, which is going to go through the other stages of adoption. But let me quickly mention that that our anticipation is that this ultimately is going to fasten the prosperity of this community, basically on 4 or 5 fronts. One, that we expect that once this is done and already progressing, the perfection of the already existing entrepreneurial base, the perfection or increment of our already customer base, because this community increased in terms of number, we are really certain that we have enough customer base. Then we are progressing as a community in terms of infrastructure, because all these things are interlinked in terms of bringing prosperity, but also to fasten and strengthen the strategic security for the community, but also most importantly, fraternal relations that exist within the community, without forgetting that ultimately once we have this confederation, then our ability for reciprocal ties, because we shall be negotiating as, or we shall have a unified voice as a community to deal with the non-community members, especially the outside world. Our voice, our unity, our reciprocal demand is likely to be much, much stronger and unwavering, in comparison with what we have today. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Musime. Someone called Job has been pushing that. Charles, you didn't read my question. I said, do we truly have any choice to delay integration at a time when multilateralism is adversely taking us back to neocolonialism? And this is someone from Nansana municipality called Job Richard. Thanks, Job, for the question. Sorry about missing it. Sarah, starting with the question by Gobi, as we wind up, and also make your final comment way forward.
Okay, if you look at the East African market, it forms 5.71% of the world population, and this is about 464.6 million people. The customers, the number of East Africans with the purchasing power are 146 million people. This is a very big market that no political leader should seek to undermine or destabilize. And maybe the people need to raise the stakes against the leaders who are draining the East African integration process, because we cannot be in any better arrangement in terms of inter and intrastate trade and other related benefits. The same inter and intra-East Africa trade has been able to help the citizens of East Africa to mitigate this, but also safeguard against the adverse or challenges that we are experiencing as a community or as the East African people. What we need to do is to make sure that as the consultations go on, for example, the draft constitution is set to be adopted in 2023, there must be processes that focus on how do we harmonize policies, harmonize practices, and also harmonize the political systems. Because there are some issues that exist that cannot allow a federation to take place. So this process should also be used to harmonize those challenges, policies, practices, as well as systems. But my call to the viewers and all the people of East Africa is that this is the way to go, and we should all give it our best shot.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Professor.
Thank you very much. The time seems to be short. I wish it was another hour to go. let me. I'll
definitely invite you after especially after the process of consultation is done.
Let me say this, that President Museveni, Yoweri Museveni, is the one guiding the process. This process of constitution making, which we are undergoing. So he was authorized by the summit to guide the process.
Okay.
And he's doing whatever it takes to make sure that we are on course, despite COVID and so on and so forth. That's the first one. Two, I would like to say that today, East Africa has got 3 languages which are official. One is English, another one is French, and the third one is Swahili. And you can see that it is like residue. But the people, wherever we have gone, have emphasized Swahili. Some people will say they don't know Swahili, and yet you say kwenda in Swahili, kwenda uko. Then in Uganda you say genda. Then in Chiga they say gender. And then some people like Bachiga will say, we don't know Swahili. Well, then you said the same word. See, everybody will understand. Say, if you said that to a dog or a cow, it would understand over time that kwenda is gender, and it will go. But people say, we don't understand. Some people will say, some Bachiga or others will say, we don't understand. That's hypocrisy. So this is an organically developed language, and we have to speak English and French. And you are forming a state. Here, languages of the former oppressors, the ones who killed us. Read my book, Politics, Religion, and the Power in the Great Lakes region, and what they did to us. The English, the French, and the British and Germans, how they killed people from the Great Lakes region. And then read also this book by Adams, King Leopold's Ghost, where one country killed 10 million people, King Leopold in 28 years, and the robber terror. Then another one which I want to talk about quickly is research and educational system, which people have emphasized wherever we have been. Added to that was health, which in Burundi, COVID hadn't come, but as if they knew something, anticipated some problem, it came. They were saying that was a common area that needed intervention by a central authority at the top. Then someone sent a message that, SADC is not doing better because it is a market of South Africa. It is an extension of South African economy, and you know what it is. From Bantustan, you are talking of upper side, which is extended. Now, finally, we are talking about COVID, globalization, and benefits, and then recession towards petty nationalism or chauvinism, inward looking, and so on and so forth. These are challenges, or these are developments, when the population are faced with a major problem which is external. It's not only COVID which came. By that time, we had started becoming inward looking. We couldn't move out. And as Norena says in the silent takeover, and those who are listening to me can type in the silent takeovers by Norena Has, she shows that NGOs and so on and so forth have taken over our countries. And they are not NGOs, but the outside have used the NGOs and gongos, government-owned non-government organizations, to take over our economies, to take over policy-making processes, and so on and so forth. So when you see that, then you know that our countries are besieged from outside, individually. And given our smallness and the borders, then they use other methods, visas, and so on and so forth. All those restrictions have diminished the spaces of these countries. You don't export coffee directly, you must pass through agents, you must do this, then the insurance and so on and so forth. By the time the coffee reaches there, you don't have any control over it. The fish leaves the lake, like Lake Victoria. When it goes on the plane, then it is their fish. They control the supply, they control the demand, they control the money, and even when they give you paper money, which can burn in their pocket with you, they don't allow you to bring it. You put it in their banks. The banks charge money and so on and so forth. So their economies, as the general has already raised these issues, and you find that you are just playing like a puppet. You don't know our economies. So you are forced to go inward looking, and the Muchiga becomes the Muchiga, then you are Ugandans. Even if you say bubu, it's not just bubu. It is, you are telling people to concentrate on developing this economy which you have, because now you can't, given that there is no broader economy, you can't say now go and develop Tanzanian economy or South Sudanese economy. You say concentrate on here, buy things from here, and utilize them instead of getting them from outside the country. Is going to China, which, I mean, made in China. You see, many things are made in China. I don't know about this cup. I have to check. Made in China and so on and so forth. And so these are.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in other words, develop internal appetite for internally produced things. Keep the incomes here. Then have this expansion of the economy, so that there is forward and backward linkages, organically developed economies.
Okay, thank you so much. Jane.
Thank you so much, Charles. And thanks to my fellow panelists. I have learnt a lot. Regarding the issue which has been raised by Professor Gobi about nationalism, inward looking, and protectionism. You know, every time there is danger, it's a natural reaction to protect yourself, to look inwards. Whether economically, politically, militarily, it's the way to go, you look inwards. So COVID battered our economies, and countries started looking inwards to protect their economies. But it isn't good. And I think for the East African region to get out of that, we need first of all to plan beyond our individual countries, our individual economies, look at regional value chains, because we are talking about industrialization, you know. So we need to look at regional value chains so that we can be able to tap into broader, bigger markets. Today we are negotiating the Continental Free Trade Area. Africa is negotiating the Continental Free Trade Area. And there is what they call, what is being pushed, Made in Africa. This is what Professor here is alluding to also, Made in Africa. So that we, at least we can be able to industrialize and be able to trade among ourselves. So these are initiatives which we need to understand, which we need to promote. But lastly, I want to go back to the issue which the General has raised, and also Prof here, that we need a deeper conversation to understand these issues about the primary and secondary contradictions. The primary contradiction where we concentrate on is where, for example, you put grasshoppers in a bottle and the grasshoppers start eating themselves, yet the person who has put them in the bottle is waiting to eat them up, you know. And this is what we are doing when it comes to the economy. There is what they call neoliberalism and the empire. The empire outside there, those are the developed countries, Europe, US. They are waiting to grab. And this is what the General was saying, you know, that when you look at their policies, the agreements they push on us, we are supposed to be exporting raw materials, you know. Those are the jobs, you know, without any backward and forward linkages. And that's why we don't have jobs. So we need to look at the bigger picture, look at those contradictions. And I think such an understanding will help us to determine what kind of regional integration we need. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you so much, Jane. Beth Muhanga sent a message. General Otafire, why hasn't Ugandan government prioritized decolonization of our education system so that we teach what is relevant for our future? This is from Beth Muhanga. She's listening in. You can add to, as you wind up.
My friend Beth Muhanga to address that to the Minister for Education. We are now discussing East African integration.
You are in the same government and you are also a minister.
No, we have dockets. you know that's somebody who is outside grazing, where the stick for mixing millet is. He or she does not know.
Access question could be the problem.
Yes. Now, what I wanted to tell the people of East Africa is that we have to look at our interests. When Kenyans come here to buy maize, they don't come to buy aflatoxins. Sell them maize, don't sell them aflatoxins. When they say we don't want to buy your aflatoxins, don't complain. Because in so doing, we are preserving inefficiency. Can you tell me why Brazilian sugar lands at Mombasa at $480 a ton when Uganda sugar is at 600? There is inbuilt inefficiency, and that's why the price is high. In like manner, I'm telling the Kenyans, don't condemn Kenyan people to eat expensive eggs when they can buy cheaper ones from Uganda. Because end of the day, whether the eggs are Kenyan or Ugandan, I want to have some extra income. Eat my eggs and yet have some extra income to buy soda.
True.
Why do you condemn a Kenyan to expensive milk when we can get cheap milk from Uganda? Or why do you condemn a Ugandan to expensive soap when I can bring in Kenyan soap, which is much cheaper? And at the end of the day, as an individual, I have some extra income and get real value for my money because of this exchange of goods and services and elements of competition, so that we become efficient. So that we become efficient. So we say, oh, retaliate, Kenya has refused. No. Efficiency will cause, the market will respond to how efficiently you are producing. Look at the power we are producing at Ujagari. If we are producing expensive electricity, our industrial goods will remain uncompetitive. So we have to solve the Ujagari problem. And solving the Ujagari problem, we have to solve the problems of these fellows who do that agreement, that lopsided agreement, and tackle issues of corruption. You know, this is the... we have to clean our house before we start looking at the other different questions,
yeah.
and so on and so on and so forth. It's imperative that we destroy the colonial establishment. We have to get out of the colonial establishment, and the only way we can get out of this colonial establishment is by looking at ourselves as Africans and our interests, and sort out our internal weaknesses, and then we can become competitive. Once we become competitive, then we shall liberate ourselves. Look at China. China 30 years ago was like anybody else in the third world. Up to now, they still think they're still a third world country.
There.
Yeah. I know third world countries which have nuclear weapons.
There.
You know? So, this is...
And US is not happy about that.
No, that one I didn't say.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are the one who said it. So, let's look at ourselves. There should be deep introspection into our own affairs. Look at ourselves as East Africans. Africans first. I am an African, and I'm proud to be an African. I pay allegiance to the East African region of Africa and pay homage to Uganda, my home. You know, the problem with us is that we do it the other way around. I am a Muchiga. I am a Muchiga, you know, and that becomes an issue.
You can even start with a Kirani. You start with a Kirani.
I'm a Muchiga, and I'm a Protestant, and I'm hey, yes, that is inevitable. That I'm a Muchiga or a Nachori or a Rugwara is an accident of creation. It's not the trustee of my destiny. The trustee of our destiny is our conscious thinking, introspection into what we are doing as East Africans, and realizing that we are subjects of exploitation by foreigners. Then we liberate ourselves. But when you don't liberate it, then we start to say, NRM, NUPA, I don't know what, DP, and we get lost. DP, do you eat DP for supper? Or NRM for breakfast?
Okay.
All these are vehicles for negotiation. NRM, DP, you know, all these are vehicles for discussion. They are not the ultimate end. That you know, if these fellows are not empowered, or, you know, that's not what is important is the welfare of our people. We have to stop our people drowning in the Mediterranean, running away from resource-rich Africa to resource-exhausted Europe. We must convert this abundance of wealth of the African people for solace and comfort of the African peoples.
Thank you very much. We are now... Yes.
Just a footnote.
Yeah.
That today, the whole region of East Africa is confronted by COVID, and our responses are different.
Yes.
Uganda has lost 334 people. Our dear people, 334 people have died. And at least we have made a vaccine, which was tried and must have helped the people. Outside there, I don't know what is happening, but in other countries of East Africa, but seems the situation is still not synchronized. So if we had one policy of dealing with such a problem, then it would be easier to handle the problem, cross our border, which would be one, and then deal with the problem from inside.
Okay.
COVID gives us opportunity to learn the problems, even other problems which are coming, and how to prevent them from coming by forming one government. Let me use the word government instead of state for the whole of East Africa.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thanks a lot, General. Someone called Nixon, who is watching, says, that's one of my best shows, Charles. I like General's humor. Thank you so much, Honorable General Tafire, Minister in charge of East African Community Affairs, and thanks for coming. I know that you came straight from Chankwanzi, where you have been for the past few days. Thanks a lot, Jen Nalunga, Executive Director of SEATINI. Thanks a lot, Sarah Birete, of Center for Constitutional Governance. Thanks so much, Professor, from Makerere University Political Science School. And thanks a lot, Dr. Musime Andrew, Director, East African Affairs Ministry. We didn't have time to eulogize. We are talking East Africa. We lost Honorable Matthias Kasamba, the MP for one of the legislators for the IALA. And so sorry to the family. Our hearts go out, our sympathies go out to the family and to his colleagues. He was one of the 9 Ugandan representatives to Arusha. And his passing was shocking, very surprising. But that is life. We condole with the family and the greater, the NRM, where he has been serving, and also to his colleagues who must still be in serious shock. From the team here at the front line, thanks a lot. And to you out there who sit this late to watch the Behind the Headlines program, keep watching this. We will always endure to bring you the best content and bring you as much as we can the best panel, the best team of experts and persons who can discuss with you. Network has not been very clear, but through Zoom, Mr. Gobi, indefatigable and always passionate and doesn't give up on the discussions here, whether at home or on the go or in the studio here. He's never missing any discussion. Thanks a lot, Gobi, for your energy and for the knowledge you share with the rest of the country and the world. From the team, the production team, we want to say thank you all. And until next week, God bless you all. God bless Uganda. Bye-bye.